Okay, so pleasure to meet you, sir. I want to set some context around who you are and just like introduce the audience to yourself. So give me some information about who you are, where you come from, that sort of thing, how you got to where you are today.
Very good. I am really honored to be here. It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invite. So firstly, I came here. I was actually a student at Mississippi State University, and you can probably guess by my accent that I come from Mississippi. So, anyway, I had a so-called Fulbright scholarship. That's how I ended up in Mississippi State. Then worked for ABB for quite a few years. I was at that time at my last job in charge of all the automation products at ABB, and then worked for a company called DNV. That is a consulting and testing company. And then started Quanta Technology. I'm one of the founders of Quanta Technology, and now I'm the president of the company. So I'm actually very proud of the company and what we've accomplished. And it's been a great experience working with Quanta, other Quanta operating units, because one of the successes of Quanta Technology is ability to work with other Quanta companies and address the industry needs. And industry is changing so fast. And I think with Quanta, we're uniquely positioned to address those changes.
Where did you grow up?
Actually, I'm originally from a country called Yugoslavia that doesn't exist anymore. I'm from Croatia. But then there was actually war in that part of the world. And before the war, I actually came to the U.S. again on a Fulbright scholarship and stayed. And I actually, to me, I'll tell you a short story. When I was actually a student, my professor came to me and asked me to be the TA, teaching assistant. And I said, why me? I have an accent. I come from different parts of the world, And so, no, we professors, we got together and we thought you're the right person for that job. And I thought this is really the place that I want to be at, because you really value hard work, you value capabilities, and it really doesn't matter, where you come from. If you do your job, you are going to be valued and respected. I think that was something that really resonated with me, and here I am now after all these years, and I'm having the time of my life.
What made you want to study what you decided to study?
It's always something that you do as a kid, and I always somehow felt that electrical engineering, for whatever reason, is a challenging but exciting area of that I could be engaged with. So I always kind of tinkered a little bit with electronics and so on. So that was kind of a natural thing to do. So.
And then, so after school, did you go straight to like ABB after you graduated? And
yeah, that was the opportunity at Monroe in North Carolina. I got the job at ABB, and it was actually they are just starting a new organization that was called at that time Electrical System Technology Institute. And it was a small organization, and then it started growing, and it was a really good experience. And then at ABB, some other opportunities opened up, so I ended up actually spending 5 years in Switzerland. And I commuted with Enroll in Zurich for 5 years. So,
talk about some of those opportunities and like some of those things that you did while there.
Yeah, that was, again, industry. We always say that our industry has been stagnant and all, but I can tell you I never really experienced that, because with my, days at ABB when I started, we were doing so many exciting things, developing some of the new products that actually, I'm actually very proud of that some of the stuff that I did at that time implemented in the products, and like, for example, locating faults on the transmission and distribution lines. So when you send the crew, you don't have to search now for forever to find where the fault is, but you can say exactly where the fault, which tower the fault is on, and then you can really restore the system much faster And of course, we know how important electricity is to everyone. So doing that faster restoration is very important. So that was just one of the things. The other thing I was doing is actually preventing blackouts. And, we had actually a big blackout in 2003. And of course, that was something that I was engaged with to help the industry address how best to prevent them. And what's happening now in the industry with all the renewables and storage and those inverter-based resources, I personally believe there is a higher chance of having some of the blackouts unless we take actions, build transmission lines, build distribution lines, and invest in the grid significantly. And I think industry is moving in that direction. That's a good thing. So, and again, Quanta being positioned so well with having amazing workforce and training and position on the market, we are positioned as Quanta really well to be very successful for the years to come.
Talk about how that happens. Like, how do you get a blackout situation? And what are some things like that we are doing and can do to help prevent that?
Yeah, usually what happens is, system is either, not maintained that well, or it's pushed to the limits. And those were the things like before the 2003 blackout, the system was pushed to the limits because there was this whole push for doing the market trading and pushing power, through the power grid. But the grid was not really at that time designed to do it. So there were not enough, infrastructure built to actually address that. So the grid was pushed, so lines would get overloaded, and then you can have like a fault, and you can have some problem with maintenance, and suddenly you have a cascading outages. And then those cascading outages happen, and then you have a blackout. And, they don't happen often because, you have operators, you have people that understand how to operate the grid, and you prevent it. But as we are pushing grid closer to the limit, it becomes more vulnerable. So then it becomes just a matter of time when it's going to happen. And again, now with renewables, because we know that, sun doesn't shine always, our wind doesn't blow all the time, and we have these type of challenges, and we need to be very smart how to manage it. And now data centers are coming up. The load is growing significantly. We have electrification. It depends on which part of the country. In California, they have some of the regulations to actually not have any more, gas vehicles by 2050. And time flies, and of course, grid needs to be prepared for it. But let me get back to data centers. They are huge loads. We are talking about data centers of 3-4 gigawatts being now installed at various locations. Is grid ready for it?
Yeah.
And that's why you start stressing grid more. And that's why we are, company like Quanta Technology is engaged in addressing what are some of those issues. How can we prevent these things to happen? How to plan the system? And of course, we are planning this, and then other Quanta companies, like engineering companies, will do the engineering, and then construction companies will do the construction. So we, as a company, have it all. And that's why we call it PEPC, planning EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction. And we can do some planning ahead of time and then make sure that we as a company are positioned well to actually deliver what the needs are of the industry. But again, the point is that planning needs to be done and you need to operate the system. But again, at the end of the day, you need to build the grid. And I think that's sometimes a little bit lack of understanding how important the grid is. Because people start talking about, you have behind the meter stuff, the PVs, and you can put power walls. But at the end of the day, unless you have the grid, nothing is going to really work well because grid and renewables work together. And that's something that very often people don't really see clearly that that's the case.
This is from the lineman's perspective. I think this is something that the line guys would like to hear is because I hear this all the time. The grid hasn't changed in 100 years. Power lines have never changed. There's always this talk, like from the line side. It's the same as it always has been because they see it that way. We see it that way. We see it that way because we still go out and set a wooden pole, put a wooden cross arm on it, and put, porcelain glass or, rubber insulators on. And it looks to us like nothing changes sometimes.
Right.
So from your side of things and from the technology side, when you talk about the grid changing and improving the grid, what are you talking about? And what are some of these technologies that are being used today?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. And let me start from the other side. Let's say, if you look now at the control room of the electrical utility or ISO, it looks like a NASA, control center. I mean, it's really amazing what technology you have, how you can control the grid remotely. Technology has significantly improved. You have all the devices. We used to have mechanical relays. There are all microprocessor relays that have, great functionality and so on. You can monitor things. So there are, technologies that are significantly different than were just a few years ago. And people used to say that, like, if Edison and Tesla would come back, they would say nothing has changed, But so you're absolutely, that's a great point. But I can tell you, if you look into now what is in the control rooms and how things are operated, it's significantly changed. There is no doubt about it. And of course, with the renewables, again, this is tool in the toolbox. You have some of these new technologies that you didn't have before, including wind.
I can back that up. Not to interrupt you, but I remember going into a control room in northern British Columbia. It was the control room that controlled the grid for the transmission grids for the entire northern BC. And I remember it being like literal pins on a board. If you called for a permit, like a live line permit or whatever you want to call this permit, you call it as a lineman called for this permit, they would actually put a pin with an orange tag that was said live line, pin it on the board. So like I know, and fast forward 15 years after that, I went into the same control room and it was completely different. So I understand to a point what you're saying, and that's only in my lifetime. I'm only 43.
No, but I can tell you, you're right on the money. And, think about digital substations, that we have now and so on, that we absolutely didn't have before. We even have technology now, so-called synchronized measurements, when you can synchronize all your data across the whole grid in the North America. And it's the same, like, I have the phone here, and if I go to the phone and I say, I want to go now to, to my gym, I can type here and see, how to get there. And they'll show me, and that's what grid can do now.
Yeah.
You can synchronize all the data and understand where you are, we talked about the blackouts, understand if grid is getting close to the edge. But I want to come back to the point with linemen, and also think about Quanta Energy Services. And I do want to emphasize one of the proudest moments of my career has been to be president of Quanta Energy Services. I can tell you, I still, my friends, colleagues from Quanta Energy Services, we are still good friends. Dave Webnager, if he hears that, we are good buddies, and we talk on a regular basis, and we actually are meeting at Lazy Q and try to do things that are quite new and show how actually we as Quanta are leading the industry in different things. And I'll go back to this. I just want to say, since we mentioned this, we actually have a project with the Department of Energy where we are installing EV charging stations at Lazy Q. And we are going to have a microgrid at Lazy Q. And there is the whole team at Lazy Q and Quanta Services and operating units, part of it, to make it happen. But coming back to energy services, for example, there was the robotic arm technology. That was, at that time, it's still unique. But we had it at, when was it? 15, well, more than that, 20 years ago, okay? So just think about it, the work that we were able to do, doing reconductoring of, 500 kV line energized. I mean, just think about it.
Yeah.
We couldn't do it 50 years ago. We couldn't do it 30 years ago, okay? And that's one aspect, okay? So that type of technology. But then you also have advanced conductors. Again, we've been doing now, some of this reconductoring was done with IEEE conductor, and there are now new technologies with like advanced conductors. And you know how it's difficult now. Again, the grid is getting stressed out. We talked about it, how blackouts happen. So you cannot take lines out of service. So what you need to do, you firstly need to do the energized, or even, sometimes it's difficult to build some new lines in certain areas. So actually you do advanced conductor to push more power to the line. So those are some of the technologies. We talk about even the poles. These days we are talking about, different types of, not just the wooden poles, So, so these are the changes in materials, in technology, and so on, but also changes in the processes and the tools and training. I can't emphasize more. I was actually very proud of the Quanta Energized Services team, because we didn't have a single incident. We did quite a few projects with no incident. We actually did, I remember at that time, at nuclear stations, there would be a hotspot, and the team would go and do work live to fix the hotspot. And there would be the cost for the nuclear plant was more than $1 million a day. If they de-energize and try to fix it, it would cost them $1 million a day. Okay, so we were able, our team, again, not me, the team, able to fix it, and because of the processes and tools and training, that was really, really impressive.
It was one of the most exciting parts.
Again, I just want to emphasize there are lots of changes that we may not realize, because sometimes it's not some step changes.
Exactly.
Things don't happen overnight. Oh, now you bring some, technology, whatever. But some of these technologies are changing as we go. And then you look back 30 years and say, oh, nothing like this existed 30 years ago. But especially if you're a young guy like you, not older guy like me, see, I see that.
No, it's exciting to hear, and it's exciting to see, because technology doesn't just mean, a gadget or a robot or, a phone or something. Like, technology can be a method, like you talked about, bare hand work methods, energized work methods. That's a technology. That's a technology that, was developed and started to be implemented and used. And that was one of the most exciting parts of my career, was becoming a bare hand lineman, and like that thrill of bonding on for the first time, and just that noise, that noise that you hear, bonding, like physically touching the line. It was a noise that, like, as a lineman, if you heard that noise other than that time, like something went wrong, right? It's usually like, or you opened a switch or something and you heard that noise. But now it's like you're making that noise yourself, and it's natural and normal. And then you get to like work on 500,000 volts energized all day long safely. And it blows my mind.
I can tell you, I did it, because, my guy said, how can you go and preach, doing energized work to the customers, and, you didn't do it yourself?
Yeah.
I said, sure. And I went up there, of course, did bonding, and that was a really good experience. I didn't buy the conductor, though, just to let you know. The guy told me, I said, no way I'm going to buy the conductor. That's it.
It tastes awful anyway.
I'm drawing the line. But that was, I can see that, and that's also, I'm going to shift a little bit the subject, but it's related. But when I started doing this work with team at Quanta Energized Services, my team was all linemen, of course, and then we actually had, we engaged a couple of engineers, because there was this whole point, how can you justify doing work energized? What's the value? And that's where the, let's say, organization like Quanta Technology comes in, to do cost-benefit analysis. Say, if you would, let's say, take this line out of service, it would cost you that much money. You say, so keeping the line out of in service saves you lots of money. And then that's how you actually do the justification for doing energized work. Because at the end of the day, you do need to have some cost-benefit analysis, And then you do what technology you're going to be using, what type of conductors you're going to be using. and then you of course do the work and so on. So again, that to me, that was such a great experience when we actually, as Quanta, were able to put together, Quanta Technology was engaged, Quanta Energy Services, there were different operating uses, operating units, PAR, North Houston Pole, Service Electric now, and all. And that worked really, really well. And we see now how, I think, great work we are doing as Quanta with energized work. We are industry leaders in that. But I can tell you, to me, what most important thing and impressive thing was training. I can't emphasize it more. I went there and just to participate, because again, even when we talk about these nuclear plants, I can tell you, I didn't go myself. And you know why? I said, I'm going to be a distraction. I don't want to be there and distract people that are doing the work. That's not my job. But actually, my buddy would call me every half an hour or text me, it's all good, because I knew if something happens at the nuclear plant, I'll be on TV.
Yes.
And of course, nothing happened, but I'm coming back to training.
Yeah.
So I watched, participated, not me being involved, but it was such an impressive process. And I can tell you, this huge strength of Quanta Services is that training and safety, and that's something that I really appreciated throughout the years.
I know that you're, PhD, well published. I see awards in the background. Like, talk about some of the things you've been involved with over your career. Expand on those a little bit. Some of the technologies and things that you've been directly involved with and can speak to.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a bit of, and I mentioned already, like locating faults, protection, automation, and control. That's kind of my technical area. We talk about digital substations in general. Again, the parts of the system when you are, preventing blackouts and stuff like that. But then, in your career, as you go, you're learning more and more things and connecting the dots. These days I'm involved with of course, it's always about a team. And I do want to emphasize this. Instead of me talking about some of the stuff that I have done, to be honest with you, I would rather talk about what we have done as a team. And that's the strength, I think, of Quanta Technology. Let me put a little bit of a marketing or whatever for plug for Quanta Technology. Sure. Because like at Energy Services, I felt this is the best team in the world of doing energized work. And I was very proud of that team at Lyman at Quanta Energy Services. I'm also very proud of that team at Quanta Technology that is industry leaders in the areas now of data centers, electrification, digital substations, planning the transmission grid, distribution grid, understanding assets, what are the issues with assets, what type of maintenance needs to be done. We are doing lots of storage work, but again, identify what's the benefit of storage, because in the industry there's lots of politics. So people are pushing for renewables, for storage, without really sometimes hurting actually the industry and hurting reliability of the system, without understanding how best to integrate those devices in the grid. And that's kind of the things that we do, that we are making sure that we integrate those devices in the grid. So Quanta Technology has some of those top experts, and that's what I'm very proud of. But again, the team effort, I want to show you something here. And I'm glad my guys did really great, who is our marketing lead, who is doing a fabulous job. Can you read this?
Yeah.
It says, teamwork is wanting and helping your colleagues to succeed.
Yeah.
It's my personal quote, by the way, so don't laugh too hard at that.
Not going to laugh. That's a good one.
But I'm actually very proud of that, because at the end of the day, if you really want to help your colleague, and that's what when you do, think about, I learned, again, not doing the work myself, of course, but how linemen do the work, how you build the transmission line, how you do energized work. Every person needs to work in unison with others. You cannot have somebody doing something out of the process, the order. Then that's why accidents happen. If everybody is doing things as a team, So the team effort, teamwork that Lyman achieved in doing the work, it's really impressive. And I learned from that also. So I said, when we are doing projects at Quanta Technology, there are cost-benefit analysis or whatever, we also each person needs to know what your task is. What are you good at? If you're not good at something, don't go and do it, because it will create problems. Of course, the stakes are, I would say, not as high,
It depends.
But again, there can be financial
Yeah.
issues and all. I still think that the stakes are very high when somebody can get hurt.
Yeah.
That's nothing beats that. So but the point is that type of joint effort is good. And I do want to tell you, I actually got an award from, I don't know if you guys are familiar with IEEE.
Yeah.
I was president of IEEE,
Oh, wow,
Power
okay.
Energy Society. Yeah. So by the way, that was an elected position, so I had to run for that position, and I did win. So clearly.
Talk about IEEE a little bit, actually, and its place in our world and what they do, and because just like from the Lyman's perspective, they've probably heard of IEEE but don't know too much about it or why it exists or what it does.
Yeah, see, IEEE, to me, the most important role is standards. IEEE develops standards, and so for doing energized work, there is a standard, for maintenance standards. Whatever industry standards are, IEEE really is the one that is doing it. And there are standards in every field of our electrical power systems. And so that's, I would say, is the one of the most important tasks that IEEE does. But also there are conferences. So like T&D show.
Yep.
Okay. And, we see lots of Lyman also go to the T&D show. Yep. And you see all these exhibitions and so on, but it's IEEE there. IEEE organizes this.
Okay.
And what IEEE does there is you have the exhibition, but you also have accompanying like panels, when you have, let's say, utility executives speaking up, and like the last T&D show, we had like CEO of San Diego Gas and Electric, we had California ISO CEO speaking, and the others, so you have that really nice balance when you do some practical stuff on the floor, but then you hear what the vision and strategy are, where industry is heading, and what are the issues and stuff like that. So that's one of the big values. And then again, you meet people. I can tell you, IEEE was critical for my career. Again, I graduated. Now I started working for ABB, and then I was lucky they sent me to IEEE meeting. And I'm suddenly meeting people they were my idols, like people that wrote some of the papers on preventing blackouts or whatever, So I'm meeting these guys in person, and they were very approachable. So I started talking to them. I started getting engaged in working groups. And in no time, you build a relationship, and then you learn. You learn from people. They mentor you. They help you. And to me, that's the point. I'm involved now in IEEE. I want to also turn the favor back. So I can help and mentor people, and not just me, but the whole company is engaged in these type of activities and so on. For example, we are going to have there is a similar organization called CIGRE. That is actually, it's just a little bit different model. Let's not go into the details. But CIGRE, U.S. National Committee, has a conference in Raleigh, North Carolina, organized by Quanta Technology. So we are the ones now. They're going to bring some of the industry leaders and technology leaders and so on in Raleigh to share experiences, see where industry is heading. So we are going to have, for example, the president of Dominion, Ed Bain, will be our keynote speaker.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
We'll have the executive from Duke as a keynote speaker, Elsa Peeler. Then we'll have other executives participating, like the PJM Executive Vice President Aftab Khan will be on my panel, together with Joe Woomer, who is the SVP at Dominion, and the others. I'm just, name calling here a little bit now, but I wanted to give you just a perspective of how these things work.
Yeah.
And then we'll have sessions that are more technical, in depth, sharing ideas and so on. So these are the benefits. And then, of course, there are the publications, that are very important. We did some publications like on energized work. They're very well received. And like when we won, Quanta won an award, EEI award for work done in Texas on doing energized work. And we put a publication on this, sharing and stuff like that,
I think it's really important because it's important because a lot of linemen just show up to their job every day like everyone else does, but their job is just, looks the same. It's just, we're replacing another pole today. But to hear this from you, I think is important. And for a lot of them out there, it's really unique because they don't get this opportunity throughout their whole career. They might not get the opportunity to hear people like that speak or understand about like the horsepower behind everything that they do in a day. Like they're just doing a simple pole installation, but it's not just a simple pole installation. It's part of something bigger. And this is, the things that are bigger, so to say.
Yeah. And, my friends and colleagues at QES will tell you I'm pretty action oriented. So how about we at the Lineman College and I come and give a talk or meet and we share, I want to learn more what's happening in that field. I mean, maybe I was disconnected now through because I've been involved. I still again involved to a degree, but maybe I should come and learn from linemen on what guys are dealing with, what are the issues, and so on. So it will help me do my job better. But also, to your point, I can share some of the, as you say, benefits of doing this work. And so on.
I think it's really interesting for them to hear this stuff. I know it's interesting for me. Like here's a question for you, and I don't know if you'd have an answer to this question or whatever. But you mentioned protections and control systems.
Right.
I had heard rumors that there's potentially the opportunity for protection systems to get so good that they could trip prior to releasing the amount of current that it would take to stop your heart. Like that a protection system could get so good that you could potentially have a fault and it wouldn't be enough electricity to stop your heart.
Okay, now
is that?
I have a story for you.
Yeah, sure.
So we actually, Quanta Technology was on that patent with San Diego Gas Electric. So we developed a technology that you have this, we talked about those synchronized measurement devices when you can synchronize the data. So you can, let's say conductor breaks, okay, because whatever the reason is. Before the conductor hits the ground, you can actually detect the break and trip the circuit.
Wow.
Okay. And it takes, we calculated, how much time it takes, from the conductor. Depends, of course, on the size of the conductor, voltage level, and all this stuff,
Sure.
But the technology is fast enough to actually detect before it hits the ground. You see? And that's huge for two reasons. One, of course, is the safety. You don't have and usually sometimes when it hits the ground, protection would not trip because you have high resistance, and it would not trigger, to your point, the fault. But also fire risk.
Yeah, I could see why California would be really interested in that technology.
And that's why it started with San Diego Gas Electric. But see, this is one of the technologies, to your point, that actually we are working on.
Yeah.
And there are so many new opportunities, and that's what, our team is engaged to actually identify those. So
that's the exciting stuff, and that's what I want people out there to take away from this conversation is like, it's changing. The grid's changing. Right. The work is changing. Yes, it might still be a wooden pole and a wooden cross arm and porcelain insulator, but just ignore that. There's things behind the scenes that are happening.
And I want to comment on this. We have composite poles now.
Yeah.
And different materials.
Yeah.
Again, wooden poles also. How you strengthen them nowadays. How but there is like in California, they actually think about also cover conductors. There's lots of undergrounding being done. So things are changing. Again, it's not that step change, but technology has been changing as well. And sometimes, why to change things that work well, guys? I'm sure that, personal materials and all has been changing, like substation, gas insulated substations. And, technologies are coming up. We talked about devices like flexible AC transmission system, shunt capacitors, series capacitors, StatComs, all these new devices, HVDCs, again, playing a big role now. Like Department of Energy, US is very big on actually promoting HVDC. And there is the technology that the HVDC, new technology that brings to our field, okay? But still, if you have something that is working well, you improve it. You don't have to have some type of wireless transmission of electricity. I know Tesla dreamt about it, And by the way, Tesla comes from my former country, just to let you know.
Love it. It's something in the water.
Just to say that. Sorry for that. Anyway, but the point is, maybe there will be sometimes technology. I'm not a big believer.
You never know.
But so what's wrong with having transmission lines? If it falls, it's working.
Yes.
Let's not do something. But in parallel, there are so many things that are helping. And again, in the alignment, nowadays when you go to the field, I mean, I'm sure you are using some of the tools to make sure where you're going, like after the hurricane, restoration. And I don't want to see that's one piece that I didn't emphasize, and I think it's very important. But we've been helping in Puerto Rico quite a bit. I have lots of people. And when the Ernesto hurricane just hit recently, we actually developed a tool called emergency restoration tool that helped restore the system much faster. Because we had a tool, we had information, and then we can send crews to the location where it's the optimal location, understanding what the biggest impact is, also understanding what the potential risks are, and stuff like that.
That's huge. That's huge.
That's huge, and it's technology, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, this information 10 years ago, you would not be able to do that.
Yeah.
Now we can do that. So technology helps linemen tremendously in that process.
Yeah.
And maybe, as I said, I'll be glad to maybe meet and we can talk about some of the things that linemen see there are possibilities for improvement. But I can tell you, doing this hurricane restoration, that's a huge thing to me.
Yeah.
And if you look into how fast the system was restored, that was impressive. And I can tell you, I'm very proud of my guys. I want to emphasize that they work 20 hours a day.
Yeah, because you see what happens 10 years ago when there was a hurricane. It took 10 years to get the power back on,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I want to tell you with, of course, all the credit to linemen and making sure that but also my guys are actually making sure that linemen get proper information. They work 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that it happens.
I believe
so. It's teamwork.
Yep.
It's engineers, linemen working together to make things better, and that's why I was proud that my work at Quanta Technology Services, it was such a team effort, and we all did our part.
Yeah. Speak to data centers, because they're like the newest thing, not just the newest thing, but it's something that it's in mainstream news and you hear a lot about, and then you also hear things like the grid capacity has to double in the next few years in order to, keep on the top levels, top shelf. So speak to data centers a little bit. Like what are they? What are they like? How much power do they take to run and operate? And just speak to them a little bit.
And again, the data centers now with AI, there is different type of loads, that they provide and so on. So one has to be careful. It's more dynamic than it was with conventional data centers. But it can create some of the new issues that all the data centers didn't. We talked about blackouts, and one of the important aspects of preventing blackouts is system stability. Okay, but there can be more issues now with system instability if you're not careful how you do it. But you asked about the size. As I mentioned, just recently Entergy signed a contract with Meta for a 4 gigawatt data center. So now just think about it. It's
wow.
I think it's East Louisiana. The grid needs to be adjusted to it.
Yeah.
But again, it's not just about grid itself. It's about what is the tool in our toolbox. There are now even contracts between nuclear plants and data centers. So the nuclear plant can feed data centers, in a more closer proximity and so on. But you see, but again, still, if you want to have some wind coming, you need to have a grid. But then you use all the tools that you have. So you can use storage. You can use renewables. You may build some of the natural gas plants that can support this and so on. So it's always about having very diverse sources of energy. It's never good to just put all your eggs in one basket.
Sure.
And it's not an easy task. I must tell you, it's going to be tough. But, we can do it. We together can make it happen. We always did that. I mean, just think about it. When air conditioning happened, in our country, grid was at that time not ready to accept all the air conditioning, but it ended up accepting this. So I think we are resilient and we can adjust. Sometimes politics actually prevents us from being effective and efficient, but I'm not going to know that.
To say the least.
I just want to clarify that if we work together, linemen, engineers, and we can make it happen. And I do want to give a plaque, for Quanta and Quanta leadership and all, because I've seen how Quanta has been growing and adjusting to the market needs. We acquired Brandner, we acquired Cupertino now. Mm-hmm. That is focusing on data centers. You see, I think that's you see how Quanta as a company is extremely adjustable and making sure that we serve our, I don't like to even say customers, I like to call partners.
Yeah.
So that Quanta leadership is really amazing in making things happen and pulling things together. And it's good to see that Quanta Technology is part of this whole, solution for Quanta services.
What are some exciting things that you guys are a part of right now that are something that you want to talk about?
Again, they're like this. We just mentioned that 4 gigawatt data center.
Amazing.
Okay. So Meta is actually saying, can Quanta Technology help us and Entergy as well? And we are now saying, guys, let's work together, with Entergy and Meta and address the issue. And then Quanta Services with, front-end part of Quanta Technology can provide the best solutions in the industry. Yeah. But that's, and I'm just emphasizing one example, but there is lots of discussion on electrification, although now in some places data centers dwarf electrification. But in California, it's still a big issue. Mm-hmm. And we just did study for San Diego Gas and Electric that was extremely well received by the Carolyn Wynn, who is the CEO, and the others in the company, because we show them or together with, again, it's always teamwork, guys. San Diego Gas and Electric team was working very closely with us, and we identified that California Utility Commission was underestimating impact of electrification because they focused on the whole territory. But the trucks, medium and heavy duty trucks, will be charging in OTMS area, okay? So if you have a very granular analysis, you will see there are some substations that will be heavily impacted by electrification of those medium and heavy duty vehicles. And that's where you need to focus. And then you go back to Utility Commission as the engineer did, and they say, oh, this is great analysis. So we are now basically leading the industry understanding what the real issues are, to your point, to prevent some of the bad things to happen. And that's one example. Then I must tell you, I'm always sorry when you ask me, because, Quanta Technology is a fairly big company and we are doing so many different things. We have already depth and breadth. So whatever is in the T&D space, we actually do. We don't do detailed engineering because we have other Quanta companies to do that, So there are so many examples that if somebody watches this interview would say, Damir, why didn't you mention the great work we are doing, for example, with managing the data huge amount of data that is coming now, or why are you not talking about some AI stuff that we are doing, or so on. So I think we are probably running out of time. So I just want to tell you that there are so many exciting things that we are doing, and I would be glad to share more going forward.
Yeah, I love that. That's the thing, and that's what I wanted people to take away from this. Is there is a lot of things, and you can't touch on every little thing that you're a part of, but just to know that there's a lot of things happening out there, and it is changing a little bit. I often talk about like leadership and communication as a topic. Is a thread that I weave into every episode. So from a lineman, from a trade, we'll just call it a tradesman, speaking to an engineer, right. What's some advice that you have that for us to better communicate with you guys? Like, so, cause you get this out there. I know the guys out there are going to laugh at this right now. Like you get this, friggin' engineers, like they don't get it ever, like I'm sure you've heard it a million times. It's like, help us communicate better with you guys. Like what are some things, how could we approach that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I just want to let you know, we're doing lots of work on the transmission side, like with developers and so on. Mm-hmm. And that now the work that we do will be done by other services later on. And I do want to emphasize that that's an extremely important piece, that we are planning the grid for, Quanta services companies to actually do it. But coming back to your point, it's about communication. It's about sharing things. And I sometimes think that we should do much more of it, to be honest, And I'm sorry, I have to come back to my QES times, how actually, I'll tell you that brief story. When I came the first time, we have a meeting and there are all linemen in the room and I'm coming there. I'm now being in charge of this. And I said, okay, so let's see, what's my value to you guys? Okay. So I asked, let's go around the table and see what your issues are. What do you think is the most important thing to do? And then let's identify who will do what. And there were a few things that were clearly I need to be focusing on, like identifying what's the cost-benefit analysis, identifying what would be the good customers to move with energized work, and so on, And then I learned for some of the issues they face with, issues with acceptance by energized services by operating units, because some operating units didn't want to do energized work. So what do we need to do to convince them that that's the right thing to do? But it was about communication. We communicate, we share. Let's just say, I heard that, by the way, so many times. Yeah, if these engineers didn't do some stupid thing, we would be, I said, okay, let's then learn from this. I'm sure there are stupid things being done. I always tell, people, every day I'm going to make a mistake. I try so hard not to, but there's no way. But its whole point is how you correct those mistakes. Yeah. So if you see that there are certain things not done right, and tradesmen, linemen see that, let's communicate. Let's make it better. And then we as a team can do better. Yeah. I think there is still lots of things that we could do. I know you may know better than I know, but I feel that we are sometimes not doing it as much as we could to make us all better. What do you think? I mean, tell me your perspective.
I love your answer, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. Is like, I just think that people don't get in a room and talk face to face, or whatever exactly. But like, get together and work out the problem. Like, you have a brilliant mind. That lineman, I'm sure, has a brilliant mind in his own way. He knows things, know things, and it does take teamwork. Like, you don't have, as the engineer, you don't have, or most likely don't have, the field experience. You don't know what it's like in a bucket truck all day, every day, with rubber sleeves and gloves and working on the energized conductors or whatever. You don't have that experience. In the same sense, that lineman's never sat and built this stuff from nothing on a computer or on paper, or sketched it out or worked out the problems, the equations to build this stuff. So I don't know. It, like you said, it takes teamwork, and there needs to be more of that in whatever aspect, whether it's with your crews or with your company or, together. Just get together and communicate, talk.
And then we will go apart. I can tell you, again, when I had that first meeting, I told my buddies, they became my buddies later on. I said, you guys know much more than I do. I mean, I'm not going to come and tell you how to do stuff. Absolutely not. Hopefully you'll teach me a little bit so I better understand, what the issues are and all.
Yeah.
But that was that approach that I think worked extremely well.
Yeah.
But it was a smaller group again. And I think if you can expand it somehow, I think that would be useful for the whole company.
Yeah.
To be, more efficient and safer at the end of the day.
I agree. I think that's a good place to wrap this up. I've had you for about an hour. I appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on that I maybe didn't ask you a question on that you wanted to get off your chest?
Yeah, I think just when you mentioned leadership, to me, I built the company from scratch, and the success was hiring the best people, working with best people, and then empowering people to do good at it. So leadership to me, it's always supporting people, empowering them, and giving them tools to be successful. That's you are a good leader. You don't tell people what to do. You empower them and give them a chance. And of course, if something doesn't work well, I can tell you, I can be pretty rough. The guys know that. And they will hear from me, okay? But they also can tell me if I don't do something well. I don't think they're afraid to come and say, Damir, you did this wrong. Okay, let's get the fact. But to me, that's the leadership, is really working together, empowering people. And that's why I will end up with this point.
I love that. Thank you. Thanks for your time, Damir. I hope you guys got some value out of that episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to draw your awareness to a couple of other things. So we make these podcasts, yes, but it's not the only thing that we put out as far as content. Our social medias are full of valuable cuts from the podcast itself, as well as just a bunch of other educational stuff and entertainment. So go follow us at Powerline Podcast on all social media platforms, and then also YouTube. I don't think that a lot of you are aware of this, but we don't just load these podcasts onto YouTube. We also make vlogs, which are super educational, entertaining, great place to direct people to learn about the industry, learn about the trade, or just learn about what's going on within either Quanta or the Powerline industry in general. So hit up our YouTube channel. Again, it's at Powerline Podcast. You can catch those vlogs on there. We also load a bunch of other extra content in video form. We try to up the quality every time we do this. We try to up that quality. So hit up the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subbed to all those platforms. Appreciate you guys. Hope to see you again soon. We'll see you again soon. Peace.